This is the evening news for Monday, July 28, 2014. I am Ruben Stobie. Thanks for joining us. Making the headlines tonight, fishermen decomposed bodies found at quarantine villages. PNCR officials threaten to quit party. David Granger accuses PPP of sabotaging his party's Congress. Muslims urged to promote peace, unity during Eid observance, and partitions make demands from GPL. Now for the news in detail. We begin tonight's news by telling you that the bodies of 2 of the 5 missing fishermen who went missing about 3 weeks ago were discovered along the quarantine foreshore. According to reports, the body of Omish Derhoop, 36 of Skeldon Quarantine, washed up at the Kildonan foreshore on Monday morning at about 6 hours, while that of Narish Pasad, 22 of number 72 village Quarantine Berbice, was discovered at Alness foreshore. In addition, the evening news understands that a 3rd body was discovered at the Adventure foreshore, but the identity was not immediately available. The men who are still missing are Dunanan Ravindranath, 43 of Crabwood Creek, Ramesh Pasad, 19 of number 72 village, and Prakash of Skeldon. The 5-member crew left Guyana on July 10 for their fishing expedition in Suriname, which was supposed to last for 11 days, but after the time had elapsed, family members thought something was amiss. The search continues for the missing men. As the People's National Congress reforms 18th Biennial Congress got underway on Sunday, it was hit with a spate of resignations and accusations of list padding. Jomo Paul was at Congress Place and filed this report.
Former Deputy Speaker of National Assembly, Grace Cyril, has signaled her intention to resign from the PNCR. She claimed that the party's leader, David Granger, was aloof and does not have what it takes to lead the PNCR to victory.
Why I haven't set foot in Congress Place? Because I don't like the climate there. And even after today,
what do you think needs to be done? What do you think needs to be done to change the party?
Why, you can't change unless you have people there well grounded in their ways. People, old staff who do things the way they see. The incumbent always wins, and whether by manipulation or otherwise. And that seemed to be the name of the game. There can't be any fair contest with any aspiring person or anything. So,
do you intend to call it quits?
I do. Now, I intend to dissociate myself completely.
GYSM National Secretary Adel Liddy has also said he would resign. Liddy contended he cannot be a part of a party that has no respect for democracy.
The list that was put to the floor to vote wasn't a list that was scrutinized by the Accreditation Committee. So it was no verification that the process was fair. And I can't support such an organization that will go into election, that calling for democratic process to be acknowledged in the country, and it is not acknowledged in the party. So I can't be a part of such an organization. In addition to that, I can't be in a party that abuses its leaders. Aubrey Norton have spent years working for the party, and to see members of the GYSM promoting a propaganda that Aubrey Norton is a member of the PPP and the PP financing his campaign and those nonsense, which is not truth. I can't be part of an organization like that. I personally, they attacked me this morning saying, you supporting Aubrey Norton is PP there for you, PP, you should go Freedom House. Somebody told me that.
Who told you that?
Members of the GYSM, executive members of the GYSM.
No names?
I would not want to call a name right now because I have a larger formal company in the party.
But Granger has defended himself, saying that the allegations are not true and he would not resign from his post. He challenged anyone with evidence of wrongdoing to come forward and present their findings.
No, I'm not an aloof sort of chap. I was having a meeting. I was down with the delegates. I met the delegates when I came in. We had some emergency meetings with Mr. Solomon and Mr. Norton. And on those occasions, I was upstairs meeting with them. So they were as aloof as I was.
Reporting for the evening news, Jomo Paul.
The People's National Congress reform has accused the ruling People's Progressive Party of trying to sabotage its 18th Biennial Congress. More from Jalicia Pinder.
Re-elected PNCR leader David Granger insists that the party's elections process was not flawed. Speaking at a post-Congress press briefing, Granger told reporters that accusations of list padding and election rigging were baseless.
The process was not flawed. The process was conducted in an orderly and constitutional manner by the returning officer. There are no grounds for my resignation from anything. The election, my election was unopposed, and we proceeded with other elections.
Microphone. Given the claims that the process wasn't transparent by the two opponents, would you, under those circumstances, hold another?
We are not prepared to go back unless there is some evidence of wrongdoing, and there's been no evidence of wrongdoing. Up to last night, we were informed by the General Secretary that the Region 10 delegates, the list for the Region 10 delegates had been published, and they were in possession of the chairman of the RDC of Region 10.
Granger said that the ruling PPPC party made attempts to mar the 18th Congress, but their actions failed. Despite a walkout by Londoners who attended Congress, Granger insists that the event was successful.
We had noticed that the PPP or some other agency with the funds to do so had published whole-page advertisements and in the newspapers in the run-up to Congress, and there were certain statements which suggested that they were interested in seeing an outcome other than what happened today. So that is the evidence that we have to indicate that the PPP was certainly interested in the outcome of the PNC elections at Congress. And I can't recall that it happened in this way before.
Aubrey Norton, Granger's only challenger, had dropped out of the race, citing several irregularities in the voting process. He told reporters that he cannot be a part of a process that is flawed.
I said to them, I cannot participate in a flawed process. While we had a lot of supporters, you would see when we came out, nearly half of the people left. I believe that we need a process with integrity, and at the end of it, you must feel strong and feel good that you participate in a proper process. The process was not proper. We spent the entire week trying to get a proper list sorted out and the issues dealt with, and we just couldn't.
So how many persons were delegated from Linden to vote?
100 and something.
How many had actual cards according to
There were problems. All the time there were problems.
I understand there were 30 earlier persons, but how many had access to the Congress this morning?
Well, everybody got access, but access don't make you good. What they didn't have is the required accreditation. Even Sharma Solomon, I can't give you a figure.
Basil Williams, Dr. George Norton, Valdo Lawrence, and Ronald Bulkan were all re-elected to their respective posts as chairman, vice chairpersons, and treasurer within the party. For the Evening News, Jalicia Pinder.
Meanwhile, the People's Progressive Party, PPP, has outrightly dismissed claims by the People's National Congress Reform that it tried to sabotage the Congress of the main opposition party held over the weekend. Here is Alexis Rodney with that story.
At the party's weekly press conference earlier today, General Secretary Clement Rohi said that there are more pertinent things to be dealt with rather than seeking to interfere in the politics of the PNC.
Why would the PPP want to? The PPP must be a very influential and powerful party to be able to sabotage a PNC Congress. So, I think that's just politics.
Re-elected PNCR leader David Granger had told reporters minutes after the Congress last evening that a ruling PPPC party had made failed attempts to ruin the Congress. Despite a walkout by Londoners who attended the Congress, Granger insisted that the event was successful. Granger had hinted too that the PPP has its ways and means of influencing PNC supporters. Rohi had this to say.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. But I've also heard him say that we would infiltrate provocateurs or people like this, to create these difficulties for the party, for his party. But that's a ruse that has always been made. Whenever they have demonstrations or protests, they would always claim that the PPP infiltrated people to, engage in riots and disturbances and looting and so forth. So that's nothing new.
The 18th Biennial Congress of the PNCR came to an end last evening amid claims that it was tainted with extensive fraud, intimidation, and bullyism. Granger returned to his post as leader after his two contenders, Aubrey Norton and Sharma Solomon, bowed out of the race. Basil Williams reclaimed his position as chairman. Reporting for the Evening News, Alexis Rodney.
Stay tuned to the Evening News. Welcome back. 67-year-old Cecil Anderson, a security guard of Lot 56 West La Penitence, today appeared before Chief Magistrate Priya Sinarayan Bihari, charged with unlawful and malicious wounding. It is alleged that on July 21 at Crowell Street, Anderson unlawfully and maliciously wounded Chandas Sukram. He was unrepresented and pleaded not guilty to the charge. Anderson, who had no previous brushes with the law, was granted self-bail and was asked to keep the peace. He is expected to return to court on September 22. People's Progressive Party General Secretary Clement Rohi says government is still awaiting a response from Speaker of the National Assembly Raphael Trotman with regards to the conflict of interest involving AFC leader Kemraj Ramjatan and member Cathy Hughes.
The People's Progressive Party, through its chief whip Gil Teixeira, had written to Speaker Raphael Trotman, calling on him to refer both Hughes and Ramjatan to the Committee of Privileges over two matters of conflict of interest. According to Rohi, Hughes' company was hired to handle the public relations of South Global, a company working with the government on the Hamila Falls hydropower project, while her husband Nigel Hughes was employed as the company's secretary on the same project. However, neither of these financial interests was voluntarily made public.
Neither of these pecuniary interests was voluntarily made public at the time of the debates on the first hydroelectric bill and the debt ceiling motion, which were defeated, nor on the second hydroelectric bill, which was passed, and the debt ceiling motions, which were amended by the AFC.
Rohi said that the House and the public have every right to be made aware of the pecuniary interest by Hughes, as she had benefited financially from such an engagement. More than that, he noted that the party takes note of such transgression by members of Parliament of the Erskine May parliamentary practice, which states that the offer of money by any member of Parliament for the promotion of any matter whatsoever to be transacted in Parliament is considered a crime.
In the absence of this public disclosure, she should have rescued herself or recused herself, from participation in the vote on both sides.
Meanwhile, in matters relating to AFC's leader Kemraj Ramjatan, his conflict of interest is weighed on the level of support given to the specialty hospital. Rohi noted that Ramjatan's client Feathers Lloyd had placed a bid for the tender of the specialty hospital in 2012. During that time, Ramjatan had supported the budgetary allocation for the hospital. However, in 2013, when his client lost the bid, he voted against the allocation for the hospital. The General Secretary's claim is that Ramjatan did not declare his financial interest in the project and is therefore in violation of Standard 107. Ramjatan, he claims, did not recluse himself from voting on the budgetary allocation on the specialty hospital. According to him, the party has indicated that it will move the motion for the members of Parliament in accordance with Standard Order 32.2 and looks forward for the Speaker's support in sending the matter to the Committee of Privileges. Reporting for the Evening News, I'm Alexis Rodney.
People's National Congress Reform leader David Granger has promised that an investigation will be launched into the shooting at the party's 18th Biennial Congress on Sunday. Granger said the shot was fired after a stampede at the polling stations and the persons were in imminent danger of being trampled. The incident has since been criticized by Granger's challenger Aubrey Norton, who said that a gun should have never been used to maintain order at Congress Place. Frustrated over the upsurge in power outages, residents of Bartica Region 7 are now demanding that the Guyana Power and Light Company installs new generators to bring an end to this recurring problem. Details in the Svetlana Marshall report. Stay tuned to the Evening News. Thanks for staying tuned. Appearing before Chief Magistrate Priya Sinarayan Bihari at the Georgetown Magistrates Court today was Karamchand Seetal of Lot 263 Company Road, Buxton, where he was charged for unlawful and malicious wounding. The charge read that on July 22 at Kiruru Landing, Coyote River, the defendant unlawfully and maliciously wounded Donald Jackson, also known as Rastaman, causing actual bodily harm. Sital was unrepresented and told the court that he has never been in trouble with the law before. With that, he pleaded not guilty to the charge, granted $40,000 bail, and was placed on a bond to keep the peace. The next court hearing for this matter will be on September 22 at the Kamarang Magistrates Court. Domestic airlines operators are being advised to operate in keeping with the standards and recommended practices of the Convention on International Civil Aviation when landing on hinterland airstrips. More details in this Svetlana Marshall report.
The Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, GCAA, has reissued a notice to aircraft operators requesting that precautionary measures should be taken when landing on hinterland airstrips. According to Public Works Minister Robeson Ben, this move was necessary. He explained that recently several aircraft have encountered gusty winds and wind shear conditions that have resulted in damage to them. As per standard operation practice, pilots are being reminded to follow the Visual Flight Rules (VFR) procedurally when operating. Although each aircraft has its own peculiar reaction in response to crosswinds, GCAA's Director General Zulfikar Mohammed said a good crosswind landing begins with a good approach. He explained that the landing phase is very demanding, hence operators should have their pilots comply with the approved procedures in order to maintain proper approach and landing. Operators are also cautioned to ensure that young pilots are taught the necessary skills and how to land safely on hinterland airstrips. GCAA also urged that pilots should be given the opportunity to practice and develop the required skills before launching out into the mainstream. Reporting for the Evening News, Gomati Gangadin.
As Muslims around the world concluded Ramadan fasting activities and celebrated Eid al-Fitr, a message of peace and generosity was delivered to Guyana's own Muslim brothers and sisters at the Central Islamic Organization of Guyana. Spiritual advisor and director of education at CIOG, Sheikh Moin ul Haq, who delivered the charge early Monday morning, urged that the Islamic community continue in their ways that were established during Islam. Over the last decade and even more recently, several terrorist attacks in the USA, Middle East, the UK and parts of Africa have been blamed on the Muslim community. Ali Haq said that although it is popular opinion that Muslims are a violent lot, it is up to the brothers and sisters to prove that this is not the case. Central Islamic Organization of Guyana President Fazil Firouz on Friday said the local Muslim community is utterly horrified of Israel's bombardment of Palestine.
Central Islamic Organization of Guyana's President Fazil Firouz on Friday during an interview with the Evening News expressed shock at the blatant disregard for human life, saying that the attack by Israel on the Palestinians is horrifying. He stated that the issue is one for the international community as there is not much that the local Muslim community can do. Firouz said that the CIOG and other Muslim organizations are horrified at the scrimmage that is affecting their Muslim brothers and sisters.
We are horrified. We are shocked at the wanton disregard for human life by the State of Israel in their continuous barbaric aggression against the people of Palestine as a whole, and in particular now the people of Gaza.
He encouraged persons of the Muslim community to keep their brother's country in their prayers. For the Evening News, Jalicia Pinder.
As the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry goes into its fourth session tomorrow, head of the Secretariat Hugh Denbo said staff members are currently reviewing over 600 documents provided by a foreign government whose embassy had operated in Guyana during this time. Dr. Rodney was killed. Alexis Rodney has details.
Although he declined to give the name of the country, he pointed out that its embassy had accumulated information on the activities of the ruling People's National Congress and Dr. Walter Rodney. Upon completion, the information will be presented to the 3 commissioners for further consideration. That evidence may join the list of close to 100 other statements provided by persons who are yet to testify. Since the commencement of the inquiry on April 28, only 7 witnesses have given evidence. The life of the commission was recently extended to September by Head of State President Donald Ramotar. However, Denbo said that the commission may have to be further extended because of the quantum evidence yet to come. Denbo related that this round of the inquiry, which runs until August 7th, will see WPA Executive Takuma Ogunsei and human rights activist Karen D'Souza being cross-examined during the first week. According to him, the Ghana Defense Force is also expected to send officers to present evidence that may corroborate the information provided by former Army Chief Norman McLean, whose evidence-in-chief was interrupted so as to allow for the provision of verification from the Ghana Defense Force. Police Crime Chief Leslie James is also expected to return during the second week with information regarding the investigations carried out into the 7 missing files that were reported at the commencement of the inquiry. The Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry was established to probe the circumstances surrounding the death of Dr. Rodney, who was killed when a bomb exploded in the car he was sitting some 34 years ago. The People's National Congress government, said to have carried out inhumane attacks on its opposition, had since been accused of using electronics expert, the late Army Sergeant Gregory Smith, to kill Dr. Rodney. Reporting for the Evening News, I'm Alexis Rodney.
The Evening News returns after these messages. We return with news from the region. A grave containing at least 400 people has been unearthed in the Bolivian city of Potosi, with the remains thought to be those of colonial-era miners. The grave was found by workers carrying out excavations for the construction of a new building. The mine at Potosi became the world's biggest after silver was discovered there by the Spanish in 1545. African and indigenous slaves worked the mines. It is estimated as many as 8 million may have died. The mines at Potosi were a source of huge riches for Spain until the end of colonial rule in the 19th century. The university intervened when it learned that construction workers were piling the bones in a heap while work continued. Internationally, Gaza and southern Israel have seen an upsurge in violence despite a plea by the UN Secretary General for a cessation of hostilities. Explosions in Gaza City reportedly killed 10 people, including children. Israel confirmed 5 of its soldiers died on Monday, 1 inside Gaza and 4 in a mortar attack along the border. 5 Hamas militants were also killed inside Israel, officials said. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu warned of a prolonged Israeli campaign in Gaza, calling Monday a painful day. Mr. Netanyahu said Israel would not finish its operation until it had neutralized Hamas tunnels out of Gaza. Fighting between Israel and Hamas has claimed more than 1,030 Palestinian lives, most of them civilian, since July 8, when Israel launched an offensive attack against Hamas in Gaza after a surge in rocket fire. Let's look at the bridge reports. The Demerara Harbor Bridge is expected to be closed from 5 hours on Tuesday, July 29, 2014 for a period of 1.5 hours. The Berbice River Bridge is expected to be closed from 5:15 hours to 6:45 hours on Tuesday, July 29, 2014. Stay tuned, the sports news is next.